because, maybe it's easier for a young guy to relate, but hopefully when I'm not the young guy anymore, I'm still relatable because I'm authentic. And because they can count on me to be the same way every day, if that makes sense, because someday that can be me, and I think it's cool to have a head coach who's been able to do that. And for me as the young guy to see that in 30 years, if I'm still doing this, maybe I'll be retired by then. That would be nice. But if I'm not, and I'm like him and just, you love the game like we all do and we're competitive and you want to be around it and you want to impact people, that you still have a chance to make a strong impact.
Yeah, I think, the role of a coach now is so important now because you have such a opportunity, and I can speak from my experience, with you and other coaches I've had, is like you have such an opportunity to impact a young kid, a young man in such a, I don't want to say moldable, but impressionable state of their lives. They're away from family for the first time. They're away from their parents. You have such a chance to be a positive role model for them. And I think a coach, and a lot of my positive role models have been coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what's so great about having a really good coach is they can guide you in a way where they can give you something that you might not be able to get from your parents because they can give you a different perspective or a different lesson to carry with you.
Yeah, sure. And we see you guys in sometimes some different lights, in pressure packed situations, and you're on the field and sometimes it goes the way it's supposed to go and sometimes it goes the way it's not supposed to go. And, your parents may see that in a different light, but even at practice, like everything at our level gets filmed. Like in the meeting the next day, it could be spring ball number 4. We're meeting the next day and here comes the meeting cut up. And are you going to be on the cut up? Because you messed the drill up. Like that's pressure itself. It's not just game day. And I think that I think people don't necessarily understand that part of it if they're not in it day to day. So how we react in those situations too, I think is really good teachable moments for players to learn lessons from us on how we're trying to get you better and how everything does matter. And I'm sure your parents and my parents have taught me the same thing, but it's another way to show that.
Right. And I think, a coach has such an opportunity to give a kid, especially, the young kids in the program, to give a kid a chance to hold themselves to a higher standard. And, they probably have that higher standard within them. It's just up to the coach now to develop that. And I'm curious to see, how do you try to get like a young man to like hold themselves to capabilities or standards that they might not know they have within inside them?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing that pops in my mind is like get comfortable being uncomfortable. We've got to push these guys to a limit. For instance, like let's use a Friday morning workout. There's some guys that are just built for those things and doesn't necessarily doesn't always correlate to the field. You're great at running around the field and doing all those types of drills, and you'll never vomit. You'll never be the one who's tired. But the guy who's the 275-pound D tackle, he's going to be hurting whether he's in the best shape of his life or not. So like, I try to find sometimes on Friday mornings, some of the guys that I know are going to make it through this workout no matter what, and then really try to push those guys. And are they really finishing through the line like they thought they were? Are they really doing it with the detail? I think that that's really important because, player X, who is a outside linebacker who weighs 225, who's 6'2", and can run like the wind, like he's probably going to make it through the Luke Kelly Friday morning. No matter how hard he pushes, but are you just making it through the workout, or are you finding a way to get better? And you're matched up with the guy next to you. You beat him 15 times. It doesn't mean you got better. You got to compete with yourself. And, I think that that's one thing as you get to the college level, you've been comparing yourself to other high school recruits when you go to camps. Hey, I'm better than him. I should be able to go to this school. I can play here. I can do that. And I think when you get to college, you realize there's a lot of talent. And there's a lot of guys that can do it, but there aren't a lot of guys that can hold themselves to that standard on a day-to-day basis. And that no matter what the guy next to them does, good, bad, or otherwise, no matter what the coach says, that they're going to keep pushing forward. And to me, when I look back on the last 11 years and being around really good players of all shapes and sizes, those guys, the best players are the ones that were always in the building. were always watching the tape, were always critiquing themselves before a coach was always seeking advice, asking questions, and not just asking questions to ask them to be the teacher's pet of the meeting room or to question the coach, but to try to get the most information possible to make themselves better. If you can't admit that you're not good enough, then you can't get better. So trying to humble them a little bit, but at the same time trying to build them up and push them in as positive a light as possible. And you got to live on that line. I think when you jump on the side of the line where it becomes, Coach Moore always says, like, be demanding, not demeaning. Like there's a line. There's a line between being demanding of a player and then demeaning a player. Critique the performance, not the performer.
Yeah.
Like that's so. I just think about that all the time. And sometimes I don't always live on that right line. Sometimes we get excited and we get fired up and we maybe go too far. And, the other one he always says too is like, if you're going to step on a man's shoes, don't make sure you leave a shine. If you're going to step on another man's shoes, make sure you leave a shine. So if there is a time where you cross that line, or there is a time you get on the guy and maybe it's a little bit more, demeaning than demanding, make sure that if you stepped on his shoes that you leave some shine at the end of the day before he leaves that building, because it's amazing sometimes how much you guys are listening when we don't even think you are, or you're watching even when you don't think you are. There's things that I'll have guys tell me, good or bad, that I've done, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe she remembers that, but the things that we say really do hold a lot of weight. So it's important that we say them in as respectful as a way as possible, and making sure that we're holding you guys to the highest standard.
Right, because I do think, there is, I like what you said about the line of